few more people to come into the room.
It's gonna take a little time, but with you by my side, I won't let go till I've got what's mine. 'Cause people come and go,
Hi, Bobby.
but you should know that I'll take it slow.
Hello, hello, Facebook. Happy Tuesday to everyone. I hope everybody's having a good day today. I'm going to wait for a few more people to come into the room, but thank you all for those that are here. I really appreciate it. Once again, I got started on time. I'm going to knock on wood that I don't have any technical difficulties. I don't know if anybody else noticed, but yesterday my live, it didn't seem like it looked like the video was not in sync with the audio. I don't know if that was just from my device, but it was from my phone and my computer. I don't know if anybody else saw that. So I hope I don't have that happen tonight. But nonetheless, it will get done. We press. So anyway, I am back with part two of how a hot girl summer turned cold. So we were talking about the summer of 1999. So I'm trying to think about where I left off yesterday. So, as I said yesterday, I will say this in recognition of Lupus Awareness Month, which is the month of May. I am telling my story in a 5-part series for the rest of this week. And I said maybe a 6-part series, just depending on how much I get through. I'm telling my story about my situation of how I was diagnosed with lupus. So I am raising money for the Lupus Foundation of America, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to improving the quality of life for all people affected by lupus. So please donate if you so feel moved. If you didn't catch the first live on yesterday, I will be documenting how in the summer of 1998, when I was a hot girl and I thought I was going to be having the best time of my life enjoying summertime Chicago, instead, I was hanging out in emergency rooms in Milwaukee and Chicago, and I spent a total of 33 days hospitalized. And 14 of those days I spent on the critical care unit, and I had to have two different heart surgeries. So, yes, that's how my hot girl summer turned very, very cold. So I believe I left off yesterday telling y'all how I truly wanted to physically assault the ER doctor in Milwaukee who turned me away and who told my manager that I was over exaggerating my chest pain. And basically, nothing was wrong with me. I had an eruption of pain in my chest that was nearly unbearable. It hurt to breathe, it hurt to sneeze, it hurt to laugh. The ER doctor, she didn't even send me for an x ray. She didn't send me to have one blood draw. She didn't send me to have any test done, not a single test. I had never been so angry in my life. The chest pain will remain, and it got exponentially worse as time went on. And as a matter of fact, I was really angry at that woman for a very long time. I remembered her name for a very long time. I don't remember her name anymore, which is a good thing. Anyway, I was casually dating a guy who lived in Chicago, and he was a pharmaceutical sales rep. He actually sold a leave before it was an over the counter medicine. He had these teeny tiny bottles of Aleve that he would give to me. They were actually sample bottles of Aleve, and they held about 10 pills in a bottle. I would go through about 2 or 3 of those bottles a day. I was eating those Aleves like they were M&Ms. And M's. And to make it worse was that taking that much medicine or over the counter Aleves, including extra extra strength Tylenol, it would only take the edge off. I mean, it didn't even make the pain go away. It just took the edge off so I could function. I had to sleep, I had to sleep sitting up on my back. I had to pack pillows behind me. I couldn't lie flat. I was taking so much Aleve that it was actually tearing a hole in my stomach. And how I found that out is that I started to bleed in my bowels. So over time, and it didn't take long, not the way I was popping those pills. So I was still on my parents' insurance as a student. So if I wanted to see my doctor or my family doctor and not be running into an emergency room, I actually had to, basically travel to Chicago to see my doctor, who was really, excuse me, still my pediatrician. So a couple of times I had to get on the train. I mean, I caught the train from Milwaukee to Chicago. My mom had to take off work, and she just had to get me to see my doctor because, anytime you walk into an ER, you're talking about a couple of $1,000s worth of bills, even with the insurance. So my doctor he was old, and not only was he was old school. And for the most part, he dismissed me as well. You know, I was missing work to leave to catch the train from Milwaukee. Um, I felt completely dismissed by him. That man told me that I probably just had acid reflux. I told him about the pain in my chest. He pretty much dismissed. I told him about the problem that I had swallowing. So he basically prescribed medicine, like Zantac and maybe, some other things, for acid reflux. So I just kind of went with it. I'm seeing the doctor. I've gone to an emergency room who's all but dismissed me. So a little more time went on, and I had to make a second trip. I had to make a second train ride home from Milwaukee to Chicago. My mother had to miss work again, take me to the doctor again, and he ultimately just broke down and ordered a few tests. And then I had to have an endoscopy done where they kind of stick the scope down your throat to see if I had any ulcers in my or sores in my throat or anything. But again, those tests came up with nothing. They didn't see anything to be concerned about, but my chest pain was getting worse and worse. And remember that I said that I joined the local Bally's, and I did, and I was still working out, but I was kind of moving like an old lady. My breathing was labored. I actually had a personal trainer, you know. Um, I would ride home with a classmate to Chicago most weekends, but I was so sick, I couldn't do anything or go anywhere. And my hot girl summer was freezing cold already, and it was just June. It was June, and it wasn't nothing going on. To make things worse, my mom was watching me like a hawk. And to make matters even worse, my mom's sister, my aunt, she's a nurse anesthetist, and she would come over to the house and they would just be looking at me and they knew I was sick. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm fine. But I'd be laid out, on the couch, just say, oh, I'm not feeling well. And, I'd be breathing, very heavy. I couldn't move very fast. But y'all, let me tell y'all something right now. And this was something that I could only see after the fact. I was looking like hot death on a stick. And I mean steaming hot death on a stick, but you couldn't tell me that. I mean, and it got to the point where I was literally trying to hide it from my mom because she was just looking at me like, you know what? Something not right. And so I just said, well, I'll show her. How about I just not come home? So I think for the next couple of weekends, I might have stayed in Milwaukee. I decided not to come home. I just said, well, I'll just stay in my at my apartment and I'll just, stay in Milwaukee. So some of the ladies at my job would be looking at me very strange, and asking me if I was okay. But I didn't even understand why. Not really, not at the time. It's amazing how we don't see ourselves, the way other people see us. We just don't. And someone told me later on that some of those ladies thought that I might have had a drug problem, that they literally thought that I was on drugs. I was losing weight, I was getting thin. And back then, I couldn't afford to lose a pound. I mean, I didn't have all this body I got now. So I stand 5'9", and back then I was probably about a buck 50, if that. And for me to let go of a couple of pounds was just, that wasn't cute back then. So I had even lost weight since I left school because I wasn't eating properly and it hurt to swallow. And it was just all going downhill real, real fast. So one weekend I came home and my mother just couldn't take it anymore. So she took me to the hospital near the house. So this was the second time that I was in the ER. And this particular time, the ER doctor was not dismissive at all. So when I went to go see this particular ER doctor, he actually did send me for a chest x-ray. And not only did he send me for a chest x-ray, he asked me a bunch of questions, which was very different from my experience when I was in Milwaukee. And so he kind of walked me through a series of questions, because he was concerned about the chest pain, obviously. Unfortunately, that chest x ray came back with nothing. It showed nothing to be concerned about. But he asked me, he said, you said that you've been working out. You said that you have a personal trainer. I said, yes, I do. And he says, well, what have you been doing? Talk to me about the kind of exercises that you've been doing. And, I just told him, just regular stuff, really with my own body weight. I've not really been lifting any weights. I might have done some upper body weight with some weights. And so he says, well, have you been, fighting or wrestling? He's trying to get to understand what could I have possibly been doing with my body that could cause this kind of chest pain. And so I just tell him, look, I don't know. And so he just says, well, look, you may have possibly pulled some muscles in your chest. He says, when you pull a muscle in your leg or in any other part of your body, you have the opportunity to rest that muscle. You can not go to work. You can, put your leg up and allow that muscle to stretch or allow it to rest. There are several things that you can do to rest that muscle. But he said, unfortunately, if you pull muscles in your chest, those muscles don't get to rest. You have to breathe, you have to sneeze, you have to laugh. And so that could be potentially what's causing your pain. And you're just going to have to let that go away. So here I am in the emergency room again at another dead end. I have another trained physician tell me that pretty much there's nothing wrong with you. You've pulled some muscles. You're going to have to wait it out. He actually did run some tests to his credit. He did run some tests. The tests came back. The chest x ray came back with nothing to be concerned about. This particular doctor sent me home with some pain pills. But, those at some point were going to eventually run out. So that was that. So that was the second time I was in the ER, and that was the second time that I got turned away. But at least he took some steps to try to find out what was wrong with me, and he sent me home with some pain pills. So I am back at my internship once again, and this time I am declining very rapidly. I mean, exponentially rapidly. It got to the point where I was breathing like this. It seemed like every time I talked, I was hyperventilating because it hurt just that bad to breathe. My rib cage felt like it was on fire. It felt like if I sneezed or laughed, that my ribs were going to break. So here we are into July, and pretty I'm in pretty bad shape. I'm taking all of these pain pills over the counter. I only had one refill for the prescription pain pills, and I was pretty much at my limit. And I basically got up and I woke up one morning, and I don't even know how I got dressed, but I took a shower. And when I got out the shower, I had this feeling come over me like I actually had this feeling come over me like I was just going to die and just kind of lose. I don't even know how to describe it. Like I was just going to lose control of my functionality, and that I was just going to kind of like just slip away. I almost felt like I was kind of stepping outside of myself. So I don't even know how I got dressed, but I did. I got dressed, I got in my car, and I drove to work. Don't ask me how or why I even drove to work. I don't even know why I wasted my time doing that, because that was a lot of work for me. I had to park my car, and what would normally probably be a 5-minute walk from my car to my desk, it probably took me 20 minutes to walk from my car into my office. And then I walked into my office to tell my manager that I was going home and that I was never coming back. And I just wanted to let him know that I had called my parents and I told them that I was going to drive myself home, because I was not going back to that emergency room in Milwaukee. There was no way that I was going to walk back into that place. I would have died before I went back into that emergency room, or I would have died trying to kill that lady, that ER doctor, had she still been there. But if I was going to go into the hospital, or if something bad was going to happen to me, I was going to go home and I was going to be with my parents. So I basically told my manager that I'm going home and I'm not coming back. And I just think that you should know that. And, back in 1998, there were no cell phones. I mean, if you had a cell phone, it was out of the ordinary, and it was probably some big, bulky thing um, that was not, cell phones were not common then. I certainly didn't have a cell phone. My parents didn't have a cell phone. So I just kind of wanted my boss to have a timeline of when I was leaving, and I would let him know when I got home, and the same thing with my parent. So I felt like as long as I wasn't moving and having too much activity, I could drive myself home for 2 hours. So that's exactly what I did. So I drove myself home, and um, my father had to come and pick me up out of the car. He literally carried me into his vehicle, and they drove me to the hospital. So he had to carry me into the ER. And I believe that they saw in his eyes that if somebody didn't see me and see me right away, he was going to burn the building down. So that was the last ER visit that I made, and the day that I was ultimately checked into the hospital. So I'm going to put a pin in it there and come back and kind of tell you how that ER doctor handled me, and, kind of the steps she took that ultimately admitted me to the hospital, because, she knew that something was wrong, and something was really wrong. And then I will continue on with the story. So I am going to end it here, put a pin in it here, and invite everyone back again to watch tomorrow and tune in tomorrow. I should be scheduling it for the same time tomorrow at 8 p.m. So Please don't miss. And I will see everybody tomorrow. Bye. Thanks for tuning in.